Then, we pause. We simplify. We think about what really matters, what holds us all together, what is truly essential to a life well lived. Like finding balance and connecting with nature, with each other, with ourselves. Costa Rica lives that promise every day. And when it's time for you to come and share that kind of experience again, we'll be here to welcome you to Costa Rica. Life's essentials found here.
Let me just stop that one. So there's a little bit to whet the appetite for our Costa Rica train today. Okay, so I'm just going to share the screen, just tell you a little bit about Classic Collection and what we are able to offer as well. So hopefully some of you may be familiar with Classic Collection already and the holidays that we feature. So Classic Collection holidays, why you would travel with us and book with us. So all the holidays that we create at Classic Collection are completely tailor-made for yourselves. So we can put together any duration, any departure airport, and we have some fabulous local people who will be representing us and be able to give you any information that you need on the products today. And we've got a fantastic example of that with Wendy here. She's going to tell you everything about Costa Rica. But you get the complete package. So you've got your pre-booked seats with your travel, you've got your luggage included, private transfers, you get nice ticket wallets as well. So you get the whole package when you're booking something with Classic Collection. The important one at the moment, removing the risk and not the dream with our Classic Commitment. So throughout COVID, we have had our Classic Commitment in place. Currently, obviously, we're on the traffic light system here in the UK. And our policy as Classic Collection has been the same throughout, really. So if your destination is against the Foreign Office advice and it comes to within 2 weeks of travel, then Classic Collection would offer you via Baldwin's Travel a full refund on your holiday or the opportunity to move it to another date. Now, currently the situation with the traffic lights is that red and amber destinations are against the Foreign Office advice. So if you were going to any destination that was red or amber, then you would fall into that and we'd be able to offer you the full, and it's a full cash refund, it's not a voucher, or hopefully we'll just be able to move it on for another time for you so you can still enjoy the holiday at a later date. But you can absolutely book with the confidence that, if anything does happen, we are in difficult times at the moment. No one can predict exactly when we'll be able to travel again. But if we do come into that situation, you have nothing to worry about. Just click onto the next screen. We do have our long haul specialists as well, that Baldwin's will speak to on your behalf. So they've got lots of knowledge in the destinations that we are selling. So we can always put together whatever itinerary, and it's completely flexible. So if you wanted to, we have suggested itineraries in our brochure, but you don't have to stick to those. If you wanted to stay extra nights in certain places, if you wanted to stay, cut out certain places, we can absolutely do whatever suits you and whatever itineraries that you're looking for. A few Costa Rica facts, just a few on here that I've added. Hopefully I'm not stealing Wendy's thunder on these ones. We've got the currency and the time difference there. So they're 6 hours behind the UK. There's actually 800 miles of coastline in Costa Rica between the Pacific and the Caribbean coasts. The tallest volcano in Costa Rica is 11,000 feet. And Costa Rica also hosts more than 5% of the world's biodiversity. Now, on that note, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let our expert tell you all about it.
Thank you, Gemma. Hello, everyone. Let me share my screen. Are you able to see my screen? No.
Not at the moment, no. We can just see you and someone rafting behind you.
Let's start again. Right, okay. So hopefully you can see it now.
We can now.
Okay, good. It's not big enough for my liking. So, right, that's better. Right, my name's Wendy. I'm not based in Costa Rica, despite the lovely background. I thought that background was nicer than Tooting in southwest London. So that's why I've got that up there. I'm just going to try and whet your appetite and show you what Costa Rica has to offer, why it's so popular, and hopefully entice you to think about taking a holiday there. I'm not, as I said, based in Costa Rica, but I represent the Classic Collection team out in Costa Rica. So these lovely people there, look at that beautiful surround. Costa Ricans are really nice people. So these are the people that would be looking after you on the ground, okay? And I'm based here and work for them. Before we do anything, I'm going to give you a little bit of a Spanish lesson. I'm not sure if any of you speak Spanish, but there is a phrase, pura vida, which is uniquely Costa Rican. You wouldn't hear a Chilean or a Peruvian or a Spanish person saying this. It literally means pure life. And as you can see from your blackboard, hello. Hi. Hello, Alan. As you can see from the blackboard, pura vida means all sorts of things. Hello, this is excellent, I'm happy. It's just a really nice phrase. So if anybody in Costa Rica says to you pura vida, it means, hey, how are you? So I thought we'd start with a pura vida. Now, Classic Collection have an awful lot of content in Costa Rica. I know this isn't very clear, but this is an image of their brochure page. Obviously, they've got a whole selection of information and suggested itineraries for you on their website as well. But I've got some of the brochure pages in here for you to see. And they've got all sorts of content, as you can see there. But as I say, if you were to log onto their website, you'd be able to see more. Or as Gemma said, speak to their consultants who are very knowledgeable. So let's start off with a little bit about Costa Rica and the geography. It's a very small country, population of 4.5 million people approximately. This is the Pacific coastline and this is the Caribbean coastline over here. I hope you can see my pointer moving on the screen. Costa Rica borders Nicaragua and Panama in the south. Now, despite its small size, don't be put off or don't expect short journey times. Costa Rica is about the size of Scotland. There's a map of Costa Rica over the north of England. But Costa Rica, as Gemma said, it's got loads of volcanoes and it's a very, very hilly country. There you can see some of the typical landscape. So that does mean that some journey times, you're not going to be able to cross the country in 2 hours. So what I'd like to spend the time that we've got doing is just telling you a bit more about Costa Rica and why you possibly want to go there. So let's start with some facts about education and health. I'm sure you can all read the screen, so let me just highlight some of the important things here. They've got the highest literacy rate in Central America. It's one of the strongest economies in Central America. It's a very healthy country. And the reason why I've got pictures of families here is to remind me to tell you that it's a brilliant destination for family holidays. Very, very safe. And they're Latin, so they love children. So multi-generational families, it's a great place to go on holiday. As you can see, they've got free healthcare, which is accessible to the entire population. And I think most importantly, this point here, that tap water is drinkable throughout all of Costa Rica. So it's a safe place, it really is. And now just a little bit about the government. There's no terrorism. They abolished the army in 1948, and the president at the time decided that instead of investing in the military, they would use those funds to invest in education. And that's possibly why Costa Rica is as stable and safe as it is. And it is a stable economy, and I've added there pre-COVID because I don't think anybody's got a stable economy anymore. But please don't think of it as a banana republic. Now, just a bit about their main industry. Lots of people assume that the #1 industry is agriculture. It's not actually. The #1 industry is technology. They produce a lot of microchips in San Jose and around the capital. Tourism is #2, and then we have agriculture. So delicious coffee, pineapple, bananas, all sorts of tropical fruits. So not technically a banana republic. Now, one of the main reasons, it might not be the reason for you to go, but the warmth and genuine hospitality and happiness of the people. Costa Ricans refer to themselves as ticos, and I'm going to show off a bit here. This is a photograph that I took of one of my guides on my last trip there in November 2019. So this was one of my lovely guides, and this, if you go to Costa Rica, this is the kind of person you can expect to be escorting you around. They're really warm, happy people. So as Gemma said, Costa Rica has nearly 5% of the world's species in a very, very tiny space. So it's incredibly diverse. And as Gemma told you, there are volcanoes. So more than 100 volcanoes, and 5 of them are active. Now this picture you've seen a couple of times now. This is a picture of the Arenal volcano next to that beautiful lake. The Arenal volcano is one of the most popular places to visit in Costa Rica. It's like our Stonehenge. Most people would go and see Arenal during a trip there. Turtles, they have all sorts of turtle species and opportunities for you to see them nesting. And I think Gemma said 200 miles of beaches. I don't know, to be honest, but an awful lot of beaches along both coastlines. Now, there's something I want to say right here, right now about the beaches. Despite that long coastline, I don't like sending people to Costa Rica thinking that they're going to get a beach holiday. Of course, they will look at all those beautiful beaches, but there's one thing for all those of you that want to sit on a beach that you should be aware of. This is what I call a crowded beach in Costa Rica. If you look at the previous images, that is very typical to see beaches like that. They don't get more crowded than this one. But there's something important to say, and that is that there are no private beaches in Costa Rica. So you will not see rows and rows of sun loungers. You will not see typically beach bars and people selling stuff on the beach. So if any of you are expecting more of a very exclusive Maldives type experience, Costa Rica is not the country for you. But what you can expect is absolute natural beauty. This is a really nice beach area called Manuel Antonio. There you can see there are loads of hotels here, but they're all below the tree line. So brilliant beaches, but none of them are private. But the main reason for wanting to go to Costa Rica, I think you'll all agree, is the wildlife, which is absolutely in abundance. And you don't have to be Indiana Jones to see the wildlife. This is another one of my photographs. That's why it's not very good. But this little darling is a baby sloth. I was visiting a hotel to do a hotel inspection, and this baby sloth was on a tree in the car park, which absolutely delighted me, and it meant that I spent over an hour watching him. He was actually climbing down the tree, which they do about once a week, to do number 2. And so I watched him, and it was just an incredible experience. And as I say, you do find wildlife in the grounds of your hotel, and often as you're traveling from one place to the next. Now, I'm obsessed with monkeys, and Costa Rica has, oh dear, I've gone blank, 4 or 5 different species of monkeys. This one down here is a howler monkey. That's one of my snaps. This one is the carnivorous white-faced capuchin. You've got spider and squirrel monkeys. So I'm afraid you'll see a lot of pictures of monkeys because I adore them. There you go. And birds. If any of you are into bird watching, there's tons and tons of birds. And there are parts of Costa Rica in the south, for example, If you didn't see a scarlet macaw, then I'd assume you had problems with your vision, because there's such a good chance of seeing them. Now, this is a bird that is only, they only live in cloud forests. And this is a professional photograph of a quetzal bird. And this is my little snap. So you see, you really don't have to be Indiana Jones or a professional photographer to be able to enjoy the wildlife. So plenty of wildlife, absolutely in abundance. And that for me is the main reason for going to Costa Rica. Now, I'm just going to say something about the climate. And what I'd like to say is that it's complicated, and I don't want to go into too much detail. It's a hot, humid, tropical country. So there's a dry season, which is typically from December to April, and a green season, so the wet season, which is typically from May to November. Now, I did say it was complicated, and I think this slide is complicated, but basically what I want to point out is that the weather changes. Despite the small size of Costa Rica, there are huge variations in weather and when you can expect the dry season and the wet season. So up here is where you're guaranteed the most hours of sunlight and dry weather during the dry season up here in the northwest. But it is unpredictable, so please just remember that it's complicated and that typically the better weather is from November or December through to April. Here's a picture of the Arenal volcano. This is what you'd expect it to look like in the dry season with no rain. And this is how it looks pretty much all the time, covered in cloud. But then once the cloud disappears, it's beautiful. And it's obviously hot and humid, typically between 22 and 28 degrees. Now, traveling around in Costa Rica, it is easy. We do sell self-drive holidays, or you can have private transportation. This is a kind of car hire. If you were traveling with our guides, not on a self-drive basis, you'd be in a much nicer vehicle. The vehicles have Wi-Fi, so you can be uploading your photographs or studying maps, and it's all very comfortable. In Costa Rica, you don't have to fly domestically. You can get around the country without taking a domestic flight, but if you do, this is the kind of aircraft and view that you can expect. I personally think it's an adventure to take a domestic flight in Costa Rica, but not everybody likes these little planes. And as I'm sure you can imagine, there's a limited luggage allowance on these small aircraft. But it is, for me, it's part of the fun of a trip. Right, so what I'd like to do is talk you through a couple of very typical itineraries that people do when they visit Costa Rica. So I'm going to start off with this classic collection trip called Highlights of Costa Rica. This is, as the name suggests, the highlights, the bare minimum. This is a 9-day trip. You could follow it as per the brochure, or you could adapt it. Classic Collection can book whatever you want. If you want to do more nights, less nights, add in more places, that's absolutely fine. So I'm just going to walk you through the itinerary. You would arrive in San Jose, and just to let you know, from Gatwick, British Airways have a direct flight, which is 11 or 13 hours. But there are other options as well. Nights at the Arenal volcano, enjoying hikes and thermal springs. It's on to a cloud forest called Monteverde. This is a beautiful place. 2.5%. Sunrise and sit on your private deck listening to the birds. It's stunning. Again, all sorts of walks to cooling waterfalls like this one. This one's easy to do from the grounds of the hotel. It's about a 20-minute walk from the restaurant. Absolutely beautiful. So that's Pacuare Lodge, which I thoroughly recommend. And the next area that's included in the honeymoon itinerary is the Ossa Peninsula. Now, that's this peninsula down here. There's the Corcovado National Park here, and on the other side of the Gulf is another national park, absolutely surrounded. And this part, the South Pacific, is the least populated area of Costa Rica. And this is what I recommend. This, I know I showed you Tortuguero, which is wonderful, but this part of Costa Rica is where I say you see the hardcore wildlife. If you don't see a flock of scarlet macaws or toucans here, then you are blind. They have lodges like this, which are only accessible by boat. There's no light pollution. There's nobody else on this beach other than the guests of this hotel. Most hotels in Costa Rica are very small, boutique, owner-operated properties with generally no more than 30 rooms. So I was fortunate enough to stay here in November 2019, and it's heaven on earth. It really is. So secluded. So you could think of this as a beach stay, but it's really a continuation of the wildlife. This hotel is right on the beach. It's very unlikely you're not going to see anyone else on that beach. But this area, the Ossa Peninsula, this is where the very best wildlife is in Costa Rica. It's stunning, far more tropical and humid than the other places I've shown you so far. And then there are all sorts of beach resorts that you could tag on to the end. So I'm just going to show you some of the coastal areas. One very famous one in the northwest, which you might remember is the area that has the least rainfall, is Papagayo. Now, Papagayo is in the Guanacaste province, and there are all sorts of luxury gated communities. There you go, there's San Jose, and this is Papagayo in the driest part of Costa Rica. And Classic Collection feature a hotel there called the Andas. So that's an international well-known chain. This is a very luxurious resort. So if you're into 5-star luxury, this is the hotel for you. It is a resort. It's much larger than some of the other places I've shown you, but still not too big. It's only 153 rooms, so not a monstrous property. Completely isolated. It would be about a 20-minute drive to go to other restaurants or bars or other beaches. This is one of their beaches. They've got another one that you can get to on foot or by boat. So lovely property. And that's in the northwest. That's the Andas by Hyatt. Another coastal area that Classic Collection feature is Tamarindo, which is quite busy. This was the photograph that I showed you right at the beginning that showed a crowded beach, which really wasn't crowded. So Tamarindo is a little bit, here is small boutique, Capitan Suicio. It's right on the beach, as you can see there. From there, you could walk into town along the beach, all the road, to go to all those nice restaurants and bars and shops. Another coastal area, which has now become one of my favorites, is down here. So a different part of Costa Rica. This is Santa Teresa, which used to be very bohemian, and I think it's becoming a step up from bohemian, and it's incredibly chic. Brilliant for surfing. And as you can see, miles and miles of sandy beach. But why I like this place is there's nothing above the tree line, and yet behind these trees is a whole road that goes on for about 3 or 4 miles, absolutely brimming with shops, restaurants, bars, life. but nothing feels developed because you've got this bank of trees with monkeys and birds. So for me, I love Santa Teresa because it feels like I'm secluded, and yet I've got life behind me if I want to go and have a nice tropical cocktail without seeing too many buildings. It's stunning. And the last coastal area I'm going to show you is Manuel Antonio. This is very popular with British people. It's about a 4-hour drive from San Jose, so nice easy connections to have at the end of your itinerary and to then fly back to the UK. The reason why it's so popular with the Brits, you can see it's very underdeveloped, and yet there are lots of properties here, but they're just below the tree line. Miles and miles of this beautiful horseshoe beach, and this part here is a national park. So after being in the interior of Costa Rica, you can end up on the coast, enjoy a beach holiday, but still enjoy the national park. I remember once when I visited here, we had to cross this waterway on foot. It was a bit of a detour because there was some crocodiles in the ocean there. And here at this park, you see all 4 species of monkeys. So you can continue with the wildlife. And because the hotels are dotted over here, very close to the national park, you often see some really interesting creatures in the grounds of your hotel. That monkey I showed you, sorry, the sloth I showed you at the beginning, who was going to the toilet, was actually in the grounds of a hotel here in this area. Beautiful hotels, lovely views. It's stunning. But just to remind you, another coastal place to consider is the Osa Peninsula, which is on the coast, but it's really a tropical rainforest experience. These hotels are only accessible by boat. Nobody else is going to be on this beach. That's the Osa Peninsula. And this little darling is a monkey called Sweetie, who I met in November 2019 at an animal sanctuary in this region here, where they rescue all sorts of creatures. Sweetie came and met us at the beach and then jumped on our shoulders and walked around the wildlife sanctuary with us. Absolutely gorgeous. So if you want experiences like that, do consider the Osa Peninsula, which is down in the south. So there you are. There's Costa Rica. I hope I've inspired you to go to see its volcanoes, the wildlife, the lovely people. As you can see, it's wildlife and nature in abundance. I think it's a beautiful country. It's not just about the beaches, it's about the nature and the wildlife. So I hope that's inspired you to go, and I'd love to know if any of you have any questions.
Yes, do feel free to put any questions in, either unmute yourselves or pop them into the chat if anyone's got any questions at all. I know one of the questions we had when we've had this before was just about spiders.
Yep. They have spiders, but nothing too incredibly scary. They have frogs, all sorts of things, but with no legs. You'll be very happy in Costa Rica. But it's not like you're going to trip over them on the street. I don't want to say too much about snakes because you're not going to trip over them on the street, but there is a good chance that you might be fortunate and see snakes while you're there. All sorts of different snakes, from boas to thin, tiny vipers and things like that. What I didn't explain is the guides. As you're walking around in the forest, they're pointing out all the wildlife to you. They're the ones who say, oh, if you look in that yellow flower, you might see a snake, and explain it all to you and bring it to life. If it wasn't for the excellent guides, I probably wouldn't have noticed half the wildlife. And if you're on a private escorted tour, you tell your guide on day one, right, I want to see a sloth, or I'm very keen on monkeys. And as they're driving along from one hotel to the next, they'll be looking out for whatever your interest is. And you know, spice on top of a dish rather than have spice in a dish. That makes sense.
What are the what's the prices like when you're out and about, sort of like snack lunch type thing, glass of wine, bottle of beer, those sort of prices?
It depends where you go. Some of the hotels I've shown you, they're luxury properties. So if you were to have a snack or a drink there or a meal, you'd be looking at $25 minimum per head. But you could eat out for $10 or less. Costa Rica's not as cheap as people imagine. And so I think, yes, you can enjoy delicious meals for, let's say, $10, but that budget could go right up. Beer's cheap, you know, you could pay $2 for a beer. The cost of living is cheap, but generally it's not as cheap as people expect. So I would budget $10 to $15 for nice meals per head.
Right. Okay. Well, unless we've got any other, anybody else got any questions before we wrap it up?